You get plenty of coverage of Oklahoma State football. You think you hear all the noise coming from Gallagher-Iba Arena when you get your Cowboy basketball news. But you don't.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
And there's a couple of Jordans here to fix just that. This is the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast.
This could be a podcast. Anyone with a computer can make one.
Here are your hosts, Jordan Keene and Jordan Bishop.
Welcome on into the Triple Play Sports Production Studios. Jordan King and the Bish with me, Jordan Bishop. It was brought to my attention by my other podcast partner, Chris Notch, that maybe we should start going by the King and the Bish, simply because it's a little it can get a little confusing on the Jordan thing. So we'll take that into consideration. Maybe implement it coming up here. So Jordan, we'll get to the Big 12 scoreboard right away here for the women's side. And again, this is basketball scoreboard. With the ITAs, it's kind of hard to get a full Big 12. I just didn't think it was worth it to get a full Big 12 schedule or scoreboard for tennis. We'll get into that a little bit because obviously two Big 12 teams playing here in Stillwater, and OSU being the victorious one and heading on to the next round of the ITAs. TCU, this is just the Oklahoma State schedule. I don't know. I didn't look at that. Oklahoma State, though, they lose to Iowa State 84-71. That was a big deal. And, yes, that was on Saturday. And let me fly through here and get to the latest scores because I was clearly unprepared, and this is what happens when you pull it up last second, Jordan. But some other big games that we'll get to is the Baylor one. We'll get to that after Vivian Gray. I'll plug that before we get to these scores. Vivian Gray will join the program, and really appreciate that. She was a really good interview, and again, we appreciated that. Kansas State, West Virginia. West Virginia doubles up Kansas State and then wins a big one down in Texas yesterday. Baylor, they, as you would expect, throttled Oklahoma. 74-53, and then Kansas TCU starting to get some momentum going, and maybe at a bad time for Oklahoma State, but they win 58-53. Of those scores that we saw, what was the biggest one that stood out to you? Coming up tonight, it'll be Texas Tech, Iowa State. So Texas Tech, one of the teams that we didn't mention there with the other scoreboard.
They play on Saturday.
Okay, yeah, Texas Tech. So I mean, you're talking about a team that is not going to be a player in this league anyway with Texas Tech, unfortunately for them, the bottom of the league, and it looks like they're probably going to stay there for the majority of the season. But looking at that scoreboard, what stands out to you?
Obviously the one last night, the West Virginia win over Texas, which, I was surprised West Virginia has done so well, but I mean, they have a lot of talent, that they had some injuries. But talking to OSU SID Ryan Cameron yesterday, he's mentioned, and I've seen it before, Texas, for when OSU went down there and their game against Iowa State that they barely won, they should have lost. Texas hasn't been impressive for being probably the number 2 team in the conference. So I actually wasn't that surprised by that score. I was surprised as West Virginia winning it, though. I thought it'd be somebody else. I thought Iowa State would have done it a couple weeks ago. But I think West Virginia might be playing itself into possibly a NCAA bid if they keep doing so well. I mean, I think we're definitely going to get 3 people in there. Baylor, obviously, number 1 team in the country. Texas and Iowa State, and then it's going to be one other 4th team, I expect.
You think they are going to get a 4th team in?
I do. I think, when we looking right now, so we're only a third of the way through the conference season, you're looking, I don't see NCAA teams here 4 through 9. But once we get to the end of the year and we see how other conferences shake out, I think you can possibly get a 4th team in. And I think with the Big 12's history, you will.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because if someone can, for example, if you go steal one from Texas like West Virginia was able to do, I mean, for goodness sakes, if you're able to steal one from Baylor, that's really going to make someone's resume look good. But the Big 12 women's standings, that just got thrown away from me as well. Baylor is still at the top, 7-0, 17-1 overall. Texas 7-2. West Virginia now 6-3, so they're in a really good spot, like you mentioned. 5-3 is Iowa State. K-State and TCU are both 4-4, and Oklahoma State is 3-4. The bottom 3 teams all have 1 win, and OU and Kansas have 6 losses. Texas Tech has that 7th loss. So I mean, we were talking about this, Jordan, going into the weekend, thinking, man, Oklahoma State wins a couple of these games. They could be 5-2, sitting in a really good spot. Obviously, if they were 5-2, they'd be ahead of Iowa State, like we mentioned. They could, and they would be right in the mix of this from a conference standpoint. However, they get swept in the past 2 games. Kansas State shot poorly there, 17 of 72. We kind of talked about that a little bit, and on air. Or off air, whatever. And then obviously the Iowa State game was not a good game at all. You look at, they ran into Kristen Scott, and you're not much you're going to be able to do about 11 of 11, 7 of 7 from 3 for 31 points and 12 boards. But Bridget Carlton goes for 19. Ashley Jones goes for 17. She's just a freshman. Alexa Middleton, 15 points. So all of a sudden it's like Vivian, she on fire in the second half, 30 points. Braxton gets 17, but you look at Iowa State, they had 2 other players. They matched that from Oklahoma State, and then they had 2 other players score 15 or more points.
Yeah, like Coach Littell said in postgame, Iowa State had 4 people who average double figures, and OSU doesn't. So they have 2, and that's when they're at the top of their game, which obviously Vivian was the other day in the second half. She didn't want to talk about the first half because that first half she was 2 of 14. The team was down 32-9 in the first quarter. But then she goes off in the second half, but you're just too big in a hole. You're down by 31 at one point. And when you're playing a team that's shooting as hot as Iowa State, Scott wins Big 12 Player of the Week this week. Jones, Big 12 Freshman of the Week. So they sweep the weekly awards. Then it's going to be hard anyway, especially if you give up a spot like they did in the first quarter. That's what Coach Littell said, that he had a problem against Iowa State and Kansas State, giving them big leads in the first quarter that are hard to come out of.
Yeah, so something I want to play some audio here from Coach Littell in the post game. You asked about Jaden Hobbs, and she seems a little skeptical to shoot, some confidence issues maybe there. And then I asked Coach Littell following that, she was able to impact the game in different ways. She had a 4-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio, and she's struggled with turnovers before, so I thought that was a positive step. But I want to play Coach's response because I think it was a good response. I think it was the right response, is that you got to get scoring output from some of these other positions that you're not getting right now. So here's Coach.
When you play Iowa State, you got to match him and score at every position, and we didn't do that. I mean, they're a team that can virtually score at every position, and we can't have empty points.
So Jordan, when you heard that, you obviously asked the first question about the lack of scoring from Jaden, and then Jamie has, she's struggled the last 2 games from a scoring standpoint as well. Kind of the curse of the podcast right now. Hopefully we didn't curse their best player right now, Vivian Gray, for this coming game against Baylor. But kind of interesting because I think Coach is spot on.
Yeah, and we talked about the past couple of years that they had the 2 scorers. Obviously last year was Lauren and Kaylee. Before that it was Brittany and Kaylee, and you can't ever find that third scorer. I mean, they had it a bit last year with Braxton Miller, but she was just a freshman. And now you're trying it. You had Jamie, who is really good to be in conference season. Past couple games, she's been a bit off scoring wise. But Jaden Hobbs, she is basically the Keaton Page of Oklahoma high school. She has the most points in high school history. She is a scorer, and yet she's only shooting once a game. And Coach says it's just she's not getting open. But I think Vivian and Braxton are getting open either. I mean, you have to find ways to score even whenever you're being guarded. And I know it's hard to do, but you have to. I mean, that's the thing, is you can't put everything on those 2 shoulders. And Vivian Braxton said it's on them, but you can't have everything on them. You have to have some scoring output from other people.
Yeah, contested shots are something when you're playing at any division. I don't care if it's Big 12 play, any Division I level, you're going to have to make contested shots. And hopefully, I think Jaden will get there. I think it's a little bit of a confidence thing. And once she's able to do that, once she hits a couple contested shots, I think it's going to come to her. I hope. I guess we'll kind of find out about that. So as we mentioned coming in, we had Vivian Gray nice enough to join us. So thanks to that. Is there anything in the interview that they should listen for, Jordan?
Yeah, definitely at the end, she talks about this game coming against Baylor and how people should come out to Cowgirl Arena, because it's a big game. Even if you're not there to see the Cowgirls, #1 team in the country, the entire country is going to be in town tomorrow night.
Does not happen very often on the women's side. We know we're probably going to get one of the top teams in the country coming in here with Kansas on the men's side coming up, and we know it'll be packed for that. You and I have both said it recently in the past year that this team is fun to watch, and you need to get out to more Cowgirl basketball games. So here is Vivian Gray from the Cowgirl Basketball team, where we were courtside at GIA. Welcome back into the Cowgirl Coverage podcast. We are courtside at GIA right now. Jordan King and Jordan Bishop with you, and joined now by Vivian Gray, the newest member of the 30-point club at Oklahoma State for the Oklahoma State women's Cowgirl team, and played a really good second half against Iowa State. Obviously a frustrating game overall, but now part of the 30-point club. What is that? When you saw that announcement come out on Twitter, 24th, I think, player in the club. So what did that mean to you?
It's a really cool experience. I didn't really realize that there's only 24 of us, and I just think it's awesome that me and Braxton got it in the same season. I'm really proud of how she's played this year, and I'm just happy that we both got that experience this year.
So you mentioned Braxton. Obviously, a lot has been made nationally, locally about you two and the kind of season that you're both having at the same time, and the two duos that you were mentioned in, kind of in the same breath with as far as scoring goes, and one of them was the team last year with Lauren Goodwin and Kaylee Jensen. Getting mentioned in the same breath as players like that, Brittany Martin, some of those kind of players, Andrea O'Reilly, when you get mentioned with players like that and some of the history of this program, what does that mean?
I mean, it's a great honor. There's been some really good players here, and I don't know. I didn't know how I was going to come and play, and I'm happy with how the team's played this year, how we work off of each other, in particular me and Braxton. I think we work really well together, and it's just really cool to be mentioned even in the same sentence, same category as those players, because they've done some really good stuff in their careers.
I personally have noticed a difference in Braxton this year, just off the court, and you guys seem to get along so well together. Just what's the dynamic that makes you work well together? I mean, on the court, obviously you're in sync. Off the court, it's like you finish each other's sentences pretty much.
Well, on the court, I think we play really similar. We play similar games. We had the mid-range jump shot. So I think that's kind of helped us on the court, is because we kind of know how each other play because we play the same way. But off the court, I don't know. We're just really good friends. We're similar in a lot of ways, but we're also different in a lot of ways. So we just mesh really well and have a lot of fun together.
What's similar, I guess, off the court? Because you're from Texas, she's from Ohio. Yeah. Doesn't seem like it should work, but you guys are always really happy together. And
I don't know. It's just our personalities. It's just we're both happy people. We like to have fun. We like to joke around, and I think that's why we get along so well together. Is we're both jokesters. We just like to have fun with things.
Talk about your path to OSU. Maybe a little more unconventional than most collegiate players, but talk about what brought you to OSU and then how you're enjoying your first season as a Cowgirl.
I'm definitely enjoying it. It's completely different than anything I've done before, but it's been fun. I love the relationships that I've made, especially with my teammates. My team here, they're awesome. I love them. Yeah, I definitely didn't take the conventional route. Most people go D1 and then go D2, but I did the opposite. There was just some stuff in Fort Lewis that I had the option to leave, and I decided to get a new experience with basketball, and I'm glad that I did. It's been a really good journey, and I just have a lot of fun with it.
What's your favorite part about Stillwater now that you've been here for a little while?
I like that it's a big town comparatively, what I grew up with. It's a big town, but it feels small. And I'm a homebody. I like the small atmospheres, small towns. I'm from a small town. So I really like that about Stillwater.
This week we have Baylor obviously coming in here on Wednesday, and you being from Texas, they're obviously a huge name there in that state. Did you ever have were you recruited by them at all, or do you have any, history with them at all that it's going to be your first time playing against them?
I did. Baylor recruited me. So, and I've played against a lot of those girls. Juicy Landrum, I played against her at state, and Lauren Cox, I played against her. Trinity Oliver is also on the team, and she played with my select team. So I know a lot of the girls. Baylor recruited me. It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
What's it like when you look at the schedule and see number 1 next to the Baylor's name, and all of a sudden you're talking to the best team in the country potentially?
Yeah, it's intimidating. It's intimidating, but we're gonna work hard to the best we can, and just see what happens.
So coming off this Iowa State game, it looked like you were guarding their best player most of the night. When you're guarding someone who is potentially a National Player of the Year candidate, for sure a Big 12 Player of the Year candidate, much like yourself, is there a little added motivation to shut her down, or is it just business as usual?
I mean, it's just business as usual. Got to play everybody the same. Got to keep to the game plan, keep to the scout, and we usually do have a really good scout on those players, see what they like to do. I actually didn't really know much about the Iowa State girl, but she's a really good player, so it was fun to play on her, kind of see what I could do. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Was it a little bit of a pride point that it seemed like Iowa State, for a large chunk of that game, did not want to guard her with you, or guard you with her? Like she seemed to be matched up, I think, on Latasha Jones early on in the game, and then she switched to you and you drew a bunch of fouls on her late in the game. But did you feel like that was kind of something they were trying to avoid you, since you do draw a lot of fouls? I think you had 8 against Iowa State.
I honestly did not notice. I didn't know who was on me. I noticed she was on me towards the end of the game, but I didn't realize who was on me at the beginning. So I'm not.
Do you
really
ever?
Sure.
Is that kind of like normal that you just focused on what you do offensively?
Yeah, I'm not usually paying attention to who's guarding me unless they're shot blockers. So we usually know who the shot blockers are on the team. That's about it.
Speaking of shot blocking, at your size, probably not, people wouldn't think, but you're top 10 in the Big 12, and it's one of the categories that you lead the team in. Is that like an art, or because I mean Braxton's also had a couple of big blocks, and she's not. You guys are both kind of wings. Is there just an art to that, or
yeah,
what?
I don't really know. I think honestly, I don't know. I think maybe it helps that me and Braxton are both shooters. We kind of know like the shooting motion when somebody's about to go up, then we usually know. I think that's probably what helps us the most with it. I'm longer than people think I am. Like I have longer arms, and I don't think people really expect that. But I don't know. I don't know about the blocking. Yeah.
Most wings like to stay out in the perimeter and shoot from there, but you like to drive in a lot as well. Do you like to play a physical game?
It's not really the physical part. It's this is the first year I've actually been a true wing.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't played on the outside very much, which I'm getting used to it. I actually really like it, but I usually play around the high post, or I did in the past, so that was just my game. The past couple years was driving to the basket or shooting the mid-range, so that's just kind of what I've been used to, and I guess I revert back to that a lot.
Jordan mentioned earlier that obviously the unconventional path, because what kind of going out of Argyle, obviously your sister was up there in Fort Lewis, obviously. What was kind of the going out of high school, going into college like for you? What was that whole transition like?
It wasn't that difficult, honestly. My parents have a place up there in Durango, so they have a place here too. Like they kind of follow us everywhere, so I really like that because I'm very family oriented. I love to have my family around. So I don't know. College was fun. I enjoy college. It wasn't really that different from high school for me because my sister was up there and I already had friends on the team. I had friends up there at the school, so I don't know. It wasn't a terrible transition at all.
Okay. And coming out, obviously, you mentioned you were recruited by Baylor. You were, I think, your 4- or 5-star recruit. Was OSU on the radar back then? Whenever you had the opportunity to come back here this summer, or was it kind of just something you've been thinking of for a while?
OSU was my second option.
Okay.
So it went Fort Lewis, OU, and then a few schools after that. But they were my second option. So when I realized I needed to leave Fort Lewis, it was kind of just an easy decision. I actually only contacted OSU. So.
And coming in here and talking to Miriam, not new before this, you mentioned how good the chemistry is this year. I've noticed that off the court, it's just kind of seamless coming in here and being integrated into the team culture.
It is. It was it wasn't that difficult moving from Fort Lewis to here just because the team does get along so well and we're all friends, which is really nice. And I don't think I was really expecting that from a D1 program, but I really love my teammates. I do. They're awesome.
Was it intimidating at all, though, before you got in here and realized it was going to be a smooth transition?
It was definitely intimidating, especially over the summer. Right when I got here, I was definitely intimidated, especially by the older girls. I don't know. Usually you hear the seniors are just mean, like the bosses of the team, but it's not like that here. They're all really fun to be around and really nice people.
Overall, how exciting is it knowing that the core of this team is really young, you and Braxton, and then Jamie Asbury looks like she's going to be a really talented point guard. Cassidy DeLapp has come a long way from the start of the season till now. you add that to what, the little bit of experience that there is on the team, but you're gaining a lot of experience right now too. Is that how fun is that and how exciting is that for the future?
I think it's definitely extremely important for the future. We're all the young players getting that good experience for next year when we're a little older, maybe a little stronger, a little veteran teams just do really well because they're so used to everything. And I think that's really good for the young players, including myself, to really get this experience now to help us in the future.
You just got off playing a Iowa State team. Baylor's also incredibly veteran-laden team. When you play against teams like that and you see 3-4 seniors in their starting lineup, and then also some freshmen, you obviously know Coach Littell can recruit with the best of them. So there's probably going to be some talent coming in behind. What is your mindset as you maybe go from someone coming into this program as a follower and trying to develop yourself into a leader?
I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We have some really good recruits coming in so far, and I'm happy about that. And meeting them on their visits, they're good people too. So I think we're gonna have a nice team, nice fun team next year. I think it'll be fun. I mean, I guess I've always been kind of a leader, especially on my high school team. I don't know if I'd count so much here just because I am new. I'm still trying to get used to everything, but we'll just cross that bridge when it gets here. We'll see what happens then.
Have you felt that you've taken on a little bit of a leadership role? Do you feel comfortable, if your teammates look at you as a leader, do you feel comfortable in that role with this team yet? I
do feel comfortable in it just because we all just get along. Like, you don't have to be intimidating. You don't have to be mean for everybody to, take advice. Like, somebody can tell me something and I'll take it. I'll tell somebody something, they'll take it. I think that's really important for us, that we get along so well that we can critique each other and help each other.
Is that something that's uncommon in sports a lot, that teams get along as well as you guys do?
I think it is, especially with younger players and older players. I think usually if there's a young player who has that leadership role, usually the older kids don't really want to take advice from them, or listen to them, and that's just not how it is here. Anybody can help anybody, or give their 2 cents or opinion or say something, and they'll take it because they know we know everybody's just trying to make each other better.
We asked Jamie this last week. Beginning of the year, everybody looked at this team and saw just basically, aside from Braxton, a bunch of new faces, and didn't really give you guys any credit. Now we're a third of the way through Big 12, and kind of where do you see this team? How good potential do you think this team could be finishing up the year?
I think we have a lot of potential, especially in certain. We've shown that in certain halves of play. I think our second half of last game is really good, and our first half against Tennessee, we've shown a lot of potential. We just haven't fully tapped into it yet. So I think that's something that we need to work on and come out stronger for sure.
Something that Coach mentioned, I think you and Braxton both mentioned in the postgame after Iowa State, was consistency. You mentioned the third quarter got you against Tennessee. The opening got you against Iowa State. When you're playing teams, and obviously Coach Littell and this coaching staff has challenged you with the non-conference schedules every year, and next year's going to be no different. When you're playing the top teams, some of the top teams in the country, how do you learn to be a little more consistent, or is that something you guys are still trying to figure out?
I think we're definitely still trying to figure that out. I mean, obviously Iowa State, they're ranked they're number 20 or something like that. So another ranked opponent we've played. We're still trying to figure it out. We're working on it in practice, trying to come out strong in practice, strong, and just work hard all the time. And we're still trying to learn. So hopefully we can do better about that, but we'll get there eventually.
On the sideline, it looks like Coach Littell, he's obviously a very serious guy. Can you talk about the personalities of the coaching staff and how you think they work together?
Well,
because I think this is an outsider's perspective looking in, it seems like Coach Littell is a little bit more of an enforcer type, maybe, or maybe a little.
Do you mean
harsher.
Off the court or on the court?
Well,
off the court?
Or both.
Off the court, Coach Littell, I think that he's a really nice person. I think he means well with what he does, and he does seem serious on the bench, but I think he just wants to help us. Honestly, the more enforcer, I think, would be Coach Annan, in my opinion, on the court, for sure. I think he's more the enforcer. I think Coach Littell kind of understands that we are a young team, and he's just trying to make us better and trying to help us, trying to fix things. And I respect that because it's hard for a head coach having a completely new team and a lot of young players and not get frustrated with us, and I think that he does a really nice job of that.
I think a lot of people look at like college programs, whether it be men's, women's, whatever sport it might be, and they say, how does a women's basketball team have 5 or 6 coaches and then a bunch of managers? Like, when you have several different voices coming at you, is it nice to be able to, like, is there someone you connect with more, or is that a luxury of having more coaches?
I think you definitely find somebody on the coaching staff that you are kind of your go-to, like somebody you talk to on the staff more. I think mine would be Coach Littell or Coach Freeman, probably. I think Coach Freeman. I personally really enjoy Coach Freeman. I think she's a really nice person. She always wants to help us, and she realizes if we have a bad day, like just outside of basketball. If we have a bad day, she can tell, and that's something that I really respect in a coach. Like caring about us off the court. I think that's really important, and I think that she does a really, really good job of that.
This is a women's sports podcast, and people are saying right now, nationally, women's basketball is as best it's ever been. How does it feel as a player to be playing in this sport and all the excitement surrounding the sport right now?
It's really fun. I just have fun with basketball. I mean, anywhere I go, it's fun. I have fun in high school. I have fun at Fort Lewis and here. And as I said earlier, I just like to have fun with the things that I do. I like to enjoy life, and that's why I like playing in the games here. I just think it's a cool experience playing in like the big gyms and the big crowds, and that it's just a fun atmosphere, and that's what I like about it. I think if you play a sport, you need to have fun with it, because once you stop having fun, it's not worth it anymore.
You mentioned you like to have fun with everything. We asked Jamie last week if she has any hobbies. She mentioned she has a large shoe collection. What do you like to do off the court? What's kind of your hobbies?
My hobbies. Let's see. Like when we're not in season, I like to go to Durango because I love the mountains. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do off season. And in season, we don't really have a lot of time for much, but when my parents come up, they always bring my dogs, and I love my dogs. So playing with my dogs is definitely one of my hobbies. I love my puppies.
What kind of dogs do you have?
I have a lot of dogs. We have a lot of dogs. We have 2 Great Danes, a boxer, 2 Boston Terriers, and 2 mini Australian Shepherds.
Okay.
So,
sweet.
Yeah.
What are their names?
Okay, the two Boston Terriers are Bella. Bella's my puppy. Bella and Tegan. And then the Great Danes are Case and Aesop. Case is also mine. And then there's Goose and Finn and Jace.
Do you have any other pets?
Yes, I actually grew up on a farm. So we have 2 pigs. I actually grew up showing goats. So we had at one time we had 120 goats, but we sold all those. And we have longhorns, horses, chickens, ducks, cats. I mean, everything.
The whole gamut.
Yep.
So, go ahead, Jim.
4-H or FFA? When you were showing goats?
No, I was little.
Okay.
I don't even remember. I was little. Me and my sister would always compete against each other. I had my own little goat. She was so cute.
Awesome. So, you aren't doing are you doing for professionally, are you wanting to get into something with animals, or where are you going with that?
Like what I want to do when I grow
Yeah.
up?
Mm-hmm.
My parents own a business, so they own WBB Surgical Supplies, so they sell and repair surgical instruments and do on-site repairs for the operating rooms and stuff, and I'll probably do something like that. I think I'll be start out as a sales rep. I don't know where yet, but I think I'm going to do that. I'm a marketing major, so I don't know for sure, but that's definitely what I'm leaning to with my parents, because I don't know, it's been a family business ever since my parents did it when I grew up. I mean, my grandpa started the business. It's just I've been around it my whole life, so probably something.
Do you have aspirations to play basketball professionally, if that's in the cards potentially?
I have not decided. I don't think I will do WNBA for sure, but if I do something, I go overseas because I do like to travel and see things, but I haven't decided yet. I got a few years.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Yeah.
Any exotic places you traveled already?
Jamaica. Went to Jamaica 2 years ago. Went to Kauai last year, and then this year we're going to Spain.
Okay.
So we take, it's our new thing. We take family trips every summer. So we started with Jamaica, then we went to Florida or Kauai, and then we're going to Spain. So I'm excited about that.
Getting to go to the Virgin Islands next year too.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I really like to travel. I like to see things. So. Yeah.
Very good. You got anything else?
You mentioned going back to the family business. Is that in Argyle?
The family business? It's actually in Ponder.
Okay.
I live in Ponder. So I grew up in Ponder on the farm, and then we had a house in Argyle that we lived in. So we lived in Argyle, but we just went to the farm for fun and stuff. And then once I graduated, we sold that house and moved back to Ponder.
So do you know everybody in town there?
Ponder?
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. It's smaller than Argyle, so it's a cool place to live in. It's
How often
kind of like
do you
a
get to go
hick
back
town.
there?
Not during season. It's probably 3.5 hours, so I don't get to go back during season. But preseason, I went home a lot, so it's not a terrible drive.
Do you get a good crowd of family and friends out to any specific location when you're playing in Texas?
Well, we haven't really played. I mean, we went to Austin, but I have a lot of people coming to TCU on Sunday. That's Sunday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have a lot of people coming to TCU on Sunday, so it'll be fun to see everybody, see my family and stuff. My grandparents do come to a lot of games here. They came to the last game, yeah.
Various Oklahoma State Cowgirls over the years have talked about bringing in highly ranked opponents, and if the students show up, what a great atmosphere GIA can be. You kind of got a little bit of a taste of that with the Tennessee game and a larger crowd than normal. What would be your message to fans if they're on the fence about coming out and watching this Cowgirl team?
Come. Y'all go to the boys' games. Come to our game. Goodness gracious.
Especially with one of the top-ranked teams in the country coming.
Yes, exactly. It's going to be fun. Even if you don't want to watch us, come watch the number 1 team in the nation, Just come. Come watch. They'll be at the boys' games.
Anything else, Jordan?
I think that's all I got.
So there it is. We'll finish off with the pleading of the fans, something that Jordan and I have done for the past year and a half. So hopefully we'll see a bigger crowd out here on Wednesday, and best of luck to you against the best team in the country.
Thank you.
So there you go, Vivian Gray, Jordan Bishop, and Jordan King from courtside here in GIA. And we will be right back, finish up the podcast on the other side. So yeah, get out there to GIA, and thanks again to Vivian for her time, and we really appreciate her kind of working her schedule around to give us a few more minutes there.
Yeah, we appreciated her. We appreciate Jamie last week and Megan Robinson the week before that. We're liking how they're able to accommodate their schedule for us after practice. I know it's hard being a college student and do all your work and getting practice in, but give us 20 minutes or so. It's really nice for us, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think the people that listen to these do too, because it's an insight into the women's program that I don't think oftentimes gets covered. So we talked about that. We talked a little bit about Baylor at the end of there. It's interesting because, talking to Ryan Cameron afterwards, Baylor was kind of hot on the trail of Vivian Gray, and Baylor coming in here. What do you think about this, and what an opportunity it is for Oklahoma State?
Yeah, just watching the end of practice yesterday before we talked to Vivian, and they're working defensively. And the thing is with Baylor, every single player, 1 through 5, can score from any place on the floor. And that's why they're going to have to help pretty much anytime anybody gets the ball, someone will have to go over and help. They can't have one-on-one because Baylor's going to score. And that's what's tough about this team. And the thing is, on the bench, they have top 10 players recruiting wise. So it's basically, you might think it's going to be an unbeatable team, but we've seen 3 years ago they did it here in GIA. And so even though you think that they're unstoppable, there are weaknesses. Cassie DeLapp's going to have to be the key though in this game. We talked about obviously Vivian, Braxton, Jamie, Jade, and all those players in the wings. Cassie DeLapp and Latasha Jones down low have to deal with the two-headed monster of Kalani Brown and Lauren Cox. That's probably the best front court in the entire country. That's going to be something. If she plays against them like she did against Kristen Scott, it might get ugly.
Yeah, so I guess we will find out, and it's going to be a fun one to watch. Any other words? Just quick breakdown of Baylor, because I know we want to get to some other sports here for Cowgirls.
Yeah, Juicy Landrum obviously is their best scorer, and she had a great game last year against the Cowgirls, and She's unstoppable pretty much from anywhere around the perimeter. So they'll have their hand. I don't know if they're gonna have Jamie on her, or they might have to just put Vivian on her. Just to have the length because she's that good of a scorer.
Yeah, and again, both of those players, all three of those players you mentioned, the two post players and then Landrum, all three of them had really good games, and that's how you beat UConn, and they were able to do that. Obviously, that came down in Waco. This is a little bit different, but still, unless the students show out like they should, I don't expect this to be some sort of atmosphere that Baylor can't handle. So hopefully the student section and the students here at Oklahoma State prove me wrong.
Yeah, hopefully, because as we saw last year with UCLA, and I think that was over around Christmas break, and that was still a good crowd. It helped out, and even UCLA's coach said it was a good environment. And I think just getting out there, even having the students there in the behind the goalposts, that helps out a lot. So just please come like that. That's what Vivian said. Just come out. It's gonna be a great team either way.
Yeah, and it'll be fun, and no matter what, we will be breaking it down next week, and hopefully, Jordan, we are talking about a win, and who knows who we'll have on next week. By the way, keep the guests rolling for everyone. So, tennis, softball. What do you want to? Let's do tennis first here, Jordan. So, they Friday night or afternoon they sweep Virginia, I believe it was. Yeah, 4-0. They sweep Virginia, and then Kansas, a familiar foe, a Big 12 team comes or wins their matchup, and they face off with the chance to advance. What was your reaction when you saw who they were going to be playing? And then second off, what was your reaction about the performance of the Cowgirl tennis team?
Well, Kansas is kind of like what OSU's done in many ways with Chris Young, and I talked to him about that in recent years as a Big 12 opponent. They have really come on as a women's tennis program, and it's exciting for the league as a whole. And I think it was great to have them match up with them, and then obviously the matchup with Virginia before that, who's actually a good team too. And then having it in the way it did with Sofia Blanco clinching the match for them and winning at 4-3 and going to nationals now, I think it's a really big thing for them to have that. And then later on, it'll be just make the match against Kansas during Big 12 play even better.
Do you think it would have been do you think, first of all, it would have, and if you do, how disappointing would it have been to lose this match, at home, to go to advance in the ITAs?
Yeah, it would have been pretty disappointing because the home court advantage at Greenwood Tennis Center is so great, and that's why they're hosting the Nationals next year. And if they would have lost that, I think it would have been devastating. I mean, obviously you can recover. That's a good thing about tennis is you have this indoor season, then you take a month off, then you have the outdoor season. And they could have recovered, but this helps them out so much because you get all these new players, all these new faces, even more playing time against the best programs in the country that also won their regionals and now are all meeting together.
Yeah, that's interesting, and again, good for the Cowgirls that they are able to. I know we're probably going to try to get Coach Young on here before long, and if this team continues to play well, we'll get a couple players on as well here on the Cowgirl Coverage podcast. Let's move on quickly to softball because I'm sure we are over the 30-minute mark. Not a big deal. We now that we're on YouTube, not a big deal. So another good thing about YouTube, I won't have to read down the top 25 rankings of the ESPN poll that came out for softball. I will just post it up on YouTube. So everyone will see it pop up right about now, and you'll be able to see the top 25. Jordan, as you look at this top 25, Oklahoma State comes in at number 21. What else do you find on there that is a little surprising? Something you mentioned beforehand was Oklahoma coming in at number 4.
Yeah, I mean, they reload, and that's the thing is I think they got a pitcher from I think it's Arizona State, and because last year we were like, okay, they're gonna be now that their two top pitchers are gone, maybe we can OSU and the Big 12 can breathe a little bit easier. No, Patty Gas are reloaded. I don't know why they're number 4. I mean, obviously UCLA, Washington, and the defending champions in Florida State are ahead them, but I think OU still needs to be top 2. I think they need to be 2, and then when the other 3 can be 1. But I think. Seeing Oklahoma State at number 21 is good news, but I don't understand why they're still 2 spots behind Baylor, a team that they swept last year, and a team that the past couple of years under Coach Kenny Gayesi they've been better than. I just don't understand.
And so they're the 4th-ranked team in the Big 12 out of these 25. Texas comes in at number 16. Texas a team that it's probably fair that Texas is ahead of them. Oklahoma State got a couple transfers in as well, and a couple players that do you expect them to have a significant impact in year one?
Oh, definitely. So, obviously we get pitcher Samantha Chow from Texas A&M, who's number 20 in this ranking. We have I can't remember. Forgive me if you're listening to this. So Sydney Springfield, I think she's the one that's from Tennessee, and Tennessee is ranked as well. And then Gabby Sprang, I think she's from LSU. I might get which schools are mixed up, but the LSU is also ranked. So those are 3 transfers you can get from SEC programs that are ranked ahead of you. So obviously they're going to make an impact. And, obviously returning Riley Bayless after having to sit out last year. Taylor Lynch, we're going to see here next week whenever we do have media day how she's doing with her knee. She's going to be playing through basically a torn ACL all season long. And then you have returning pitchers Samantha Clakley, Logan Simonek. So you have a really good roster. And then you can't forget Sydney Pennington, who's just all-world type of player, and that was just last year as a freshman. So Coach Gassie's talked about how they're going to be a national player this year. They're going to at least be going World Series or bust to make it to the top 8. So we'll see. But I think sitting at 21 is kind of a slight to them, but at least they're ranked this year.
Sorry, I'm kicking stuff around here in the studio. You talk about getting a couple players from SEC teams. SEC is obviously a huge player in when it comes to softball, and I'm not even going to try to count them, but there's a bunch of them in the top 25 here. The top 25 has been on the screen for those listening for the past 2.5 more minutes. So you guys can pick out the SEC teams if you want. But seeing 2 top 10 teams, LSU, Tennessee, that you get kids from, and then the SEC overall provides good competition. These players are going to come in recognizing what good softball is. How big is that to building a program? And obviously, Gajewski's now been into the program for long enough to get his kids in place. But still, when you're talking anyone under a decade, where you still haven't really, I feel like you still haven't really built your core or where you want to be. How big can transfers be? Because I think we've seen that at every other sport, football and basketball most prominently.
I think eventually, someday down the road, whenever Kenny starts getting, players like Sydney Pennington every year and those type of recruits, he won't have to rely on transfers as much as he's had to have transfers a lot, especially at pitcher. But someday down the road, he'll get his players in. The thing is, you have to make that first big push. And what I like about Kenny is coming from a World Series winning team in Florida and knowing the SEC landscape, he knows what needs to be accomplished to get to Oklahoma City in the World Series and to win a title. So I like how he's talking about with Oklahoma State, which many people thought was an afterthought before he came along. Their last World Series appearance was 2011. They haven't really done anything before that for a while. He came in talking national titles. Not Big 12 titles, national titles. Because the thing is, if you beat OU, you're probably going to win a national title. So I think the way he's talking his team up and the confidence he gives is inspiring to these players that are wanting to transfer, looking for other options. And someday it's going to be inspiring to high school players, and you can start having those big-time recruiting classes.
I know we got to get out of here because we got the afternoon sports drive coming up here. But I want to add, the spring media availability, like you said, media day is coming up here. We'll probably have a bunch of stuff, a bunch of audio, a bunch of sound on the podcast. Just talk about what you're excited to learn about some of these sports coming up here. Again, in a loaded spring slate for the athletic department.
Yeah, we'll get the baseball, softball media day. I'm assuming it's next week. We haven't got an official time, but with both seasons starting up in 2 weeks, I assume it's got to be next week. And I'm interested to learn. Obviously, we talked about Taylor Lynch and how she's doing, but how the pitching staff's doing. Catcher last year was kind of a revolving door. What they're going to do there, and just kind of what the schedule is probably one of the toughest top 5, I'd say, at least in the country. What Coach Gajewski's seeing from his team right now, if he thinks that they can handle that schedule, because obviously he talked him up in the media around what he thinks, though, right now, 2 weeks before the season starts, what he thinks the team's going to do the first tournament.
It's going to be exciting to figure out, Jordan, and we will be there every step of the way. For Jordan Bishop, I am Jordan King. Thanks again to Vivian Gray for joining us and giving us a few minutes of her time. That was a really good interview, and we really do appreciate that. Thank you all for listening in, by the way. This is the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast. Jordan King and Jordan Bishop on the Triple Play Sports Podcast Network.